Matters lawyers versus the judiciary after the judiciary puts brakes on remuneration of government agencies to lawyers, private lawyers for that matter. So I'll be telling you why that as well has caused an uproar. So I'd love to hear from you this morning across our feedback channels. We are streaming live on EBN TV. Our SMS line is 23059. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Let's get this show started. Now, neighboring Uganda has imposed a shutdown of communication networks just 2 days before the country, or at least 1 day before the country heads to its general elections. The Uganda Communications Commission announced the suspension of internet and mobile services, directing all network providers in the country to hold their operations temporarily during the election period. The blackout comes amid concerns over the government's crackdown on opposition figures and civil society ahead of Thursday's polls. Observers warn that communications blackout could further limit access to information and hinder transparency during the election process.
Ahead of the voting day on January 15th, Uganda is at a crossroads between the past and the future, the old and the new. Ideally, elections are supposed to be held in an environment that is conducive to a free, fair, credible, transparent, verifiable, accountable election.
You know, it's quite interesting that within the East African nations, at least Uganda and Tanzania, there's a big link, right, between the internet as well as the polls. And the big question would be, what is it about the internet that would, perhaps jeopardize or somehow interfere with the country's elections, and why there's a need to shut down internet within these two particular countries. For the case of Tanzania last year, they also were in a similar position where, following the election aftermath, internet was shut down and they were in blackout, literally. And now Uganda, the same, 2 days without internet. You can't really get online and see what's going on across the world or even within your own country. You're sort of secluded, for lack of a better word. And so if you've got friends in Uganda, if you try to reach them right now online, you may not be able to do that even as they head to the elections tomorrow. You may be wondering what's going on now. Yoweri Museveni is the current president of Uganda, and he's seeking to get another term in office. He's been in office for over 40 years. He's currently 81 years of age, and so he's seeking a new mandate. This is 5 years. If you do the math, if he gets it, well, he will be president until he is 86. On the other hand, you've got Bobi Wine, Robert Kyagulanyi, who's the opposition. And, these are the two contenders in the race. But at the same time, human rights activists from across Africa have raised alarm over Uganda's upcoming general elections, warning that it is being held under a cloud of repression and intimidation. The warning came just a day before Ugandans are scheduled to cast their votes. And speaking at a joint press conference organized by the Africans for Africa Solidarity Movement in Nairobi, the activists accused Yoweri Museveni's government of deliberately suppressing the will of the people. They argued that these conditions make it unlikely that the election will be free, fair, or credible. Among the speakers were Kenyan activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, who recalled being abducted in Uganda last year while attending an opposition rally, citing their experience as evidence of the risks faced by opposition supporters and civil society.
Ahead of the voting day on January 15th, Uganda is at a crossroads between the past and the future, the old and the new. Ideally, elections are supposed to be held in an environment that is conducive to a free, fair, credible, transparent, verifiable, accountable election, so that the sovereign will of the people can be exercised. The Electoral Commission, led by Justice Simon Mugenyi Byabakama, has managed the affairs of the Commission in a manner that strongly suggests that he is a puppet of the ruling elite.
The progress of Uganda has been stifled by systematic corruption, has been stifled by suppression of human rights in Uganda, as my colleagues had already said. There is no freedom simply because he has had to do with limits or do with things that will keep him in power for all this time, especially when you look at the year 2005 when he first, abolished the presidential term limits, and then in 2017 when he abolished the presidential age.
Lawyers across the country have raised concerns following a High Court order that bars public entities from engaging private law firms, a move they say threatens the future of the legal profession. Led by Law Society of Kenya President Faith Odhiambo, the lawyers accused the judiciary of attempting to stifle legal practice by denying advocates opportunities to represent government institutions. Odhiambo said the decision would have far-reaching implications on the livelihoods of many lawyers and could undermine access to specialized legal services. The lawyers have vowed to challenge the ruling, with the LSK indicating it will push for what it termed radical surgery within the judiciary to safeguard the independence and sustainability of the legal profession. The contentious order was issued by the Nakuru High Court following a petition filed by Dr. Magare Gikenyi and Busia Senator Okia Omtata Okoiti. The petition argued that public entities should rely on in-house legal teams in the Attorney General's office instead of outsourcing legal service to private firms.
We shall not sit back and watch the judiciary, the last line of defense for the people of Kenya, run rogue against its own people. Unless this trend is nipped in the bud and with the requisite firmness it deserves, we are prepared to agitate for a radical surgery as a means to uphold and protect our constitution. As things stand, the Law Society of Kenya is collating all emerging instances of ineptitude, judicial arrogance and abrogation of duty on the part of judges and judicial officers. We will be taking necessary action against all breaches of duty and intend to end this cycle of abuse of judicial authority.
We need to have a system where judges exercise their discretion, taking in consideration the Constitution and the law that is provided thereunder. That we do not have such archaic and sweeping orders affecting an entire legal profession without even having had the very participants and individuals who are not even participants of those contracts purporting to get sweeping orders that are almost at finality stages at ex parte level.
Supreme Court Judge Njoki Ndungu and Chief Magistrate Evelyn Olwande have been sworn in as Commissioners of the Judicial Service Commission JSC for a 5-year term. The swearing-in ceremony was held and presided over by Chief Justice Martha Koome. Justice Ndungu was appointed to represent the Supreme Court at the Commission, filling the vacancy left following the death of the late Justice Mohammed Ibrahim. Chief Magistrate Evelyn Olwande begins her second term as a JSC Commissioner after being elected by members of the Kenya Magistrate and Judges Association, reflecting continued confidence in her leadership and experience within the judiciary. Speaking during the ceremony, Chief Justice Koome urged the new commissioners to uphold the highest standards of integrity, professionalism, and accountability. She emphasized the critical role of the JSC in safeguarding judicial independence and strengthening public confidence in the justice system.
The oath binds you to fidelity, to the Constitution and the law, and calls upon you to serve the people of Kenya with diligence, integrity, impartiality, and devotion.
I reaffirm my unwavering support to discharge my duties with integrity, impartiality, diligence, and fidelity to the Constitution.
And even as I step into the shoes of my late brother, Justice Ibrahim, I do commit to also represent, in as far as possible, the concerns of other judges and judicial officers as we work in the Judicial Service Commission.
Nanyuki High School has officially received its first cohort of grade 10 learners under the new competency-based education CBE curriculum. marking a significant milestone in the transition into the reformed education system. As of Tuesday, the school had admitted 200 grade 10 students, with the admission exercise expected to continue throughout the week. The learners are among the pioneer group moving into senior secondary school following the rollout of the CBE system. Parents who accompanied their children to the school praised the smooth and well-organized admission process, noting that the seamless intake reflected the institution's preparedness to implement the new curriculum. School administrators say they are ready to support the learners academically and socially as they adjust to the new learning framework, which emphasizes skills development, talent nurturing, and learner-centered education.
Today is a very important day for us. We are receiving the first cohort of grade 10 learners. So far we have received about 200 who have already been admitted. And we expect to go up to around 700. Again, tomorrow we still expect another number, again a good number to come at even the course of the day. By the end of the week, that's when we expect now to have reached our target. And here at Nanyuki High School, we are offering the three pathways. And going by the statistics, what we've noted is that the pure sciences is that pathway. That one is very popular. It has a majority of the learners. Though even the others, we will still take care because we also have a desk whereby before they even select, we have a desk that comprises members of the career department. They are now guiding the learners based on their interests, so that we can also help them make wise decisions. Otherwise, Nanyuki High School, I can say, is the place to be. This is the place to be, and we are going to help all the learners realize their dreams.
Nimeleta mtoto huku anaitwa Tairis, anafanya STEM. Na tumefurahia juu tumefanyiwa na standard ya haraka sana. Hatukukaa, kulikuwa na wametayarisha, wametuweka kwa mtayarisho wa haraka sana. Hata tumestuka juu watu ni wengi, lakini kwa masaa hii ya saa 6 already tumemaliziwa. Tumeshukuru kwa kukua kwa shule ya Nanyuki National High School.
Leta hapa siku hii ya leo. Nafurahia sana vile aliitwa hii shule a national school. So I feel so grateful. The process has been smooth. Tumefanya vizuri kabisa. Amechukua social sciences because he want to be a lawyer after this. Kwa hivyo tumefurahi sana. Nanyuki High is the best school. We saw the performance and we are so much grateful for my son to be here. So na feel nimefurahia, nimeletwa na sister yangu, tumekuja na mom, kijana ndiye huyu amekuja. Najua sasa hata yeye labda aseme vile amesikia na vile anataka kukua.
Very happy because this is my first time here in Nanyuki High School. As a parent, the process has been very seamless. My son has taken the STEM pathway, applied science to be precise. And I'm very happy because the senior boys here welcomed us right from the gate. They've taken care of us.
Teachers in Migori County have successfully elected new Kenya National Union of Teachers (NAT) branch officials in what leaders described as a peaceful, credible and transparent exercise. NAT Western Region Women Representative Mercy Muthoni commended Migori teachers for conducting themselves with discipline during the elections, noting that the process reflected unity and maturity among members. She called on teachers to remain united, including those who did not win, and to rally behind the newly elected leadership for the good of the union. Roslyn Wandigi, who was elected unopposed as the new executive secretary, thanked teachers for the confidence they placed in her leadership. She urged members to support the new team as it works to address teachers' welfare and strengthen union operations within the county.
I want to state here that the teachers of Migori NAT branch elected their executive secretary, their chairman, and the branch treasurer unopposed. The other members of the steering had very stiff opposition, which showed very clearly that the teachers love their unit large. Therefore, today the teachers of Migori have spoken through the ballot and have elected the leaders that they believe in, the leaders that they have confidence in. We, as the Kenya National Union of Teachers, are very proud. Personally, I'm very proud of Migori NAT branch, the way they have conducted themselves and the patience that they have shown. The elections were very fair, they were credible, and very democratic.
As the Kenya National Union of Teachers Migori branch, we are very proud of the teaching fraternity because of what they have done. We want to request for those people who have lost. Today you have lost and tomorrow you may soldier and get an opportunity. Migori branch, what is important is the unity and unity of purpose for the progress of this branch.
I'm very happy that our members came in good numbers. They did what is right because it was their democratic right to come and vote. And as Kenya National Union of Teachers, the leadership, we are going to work with them. I know there are men and women who are capable to do the work, and we just say that we are going to make this Migori branch greater and greater again.
They have really shown their patience, and we have done it perfectly. We want to congratulate the leaders that conducted the election for peaceful election.
Now to some great news. Kiharu constituency Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has announced a reduction in day secondary school fees from 1,000 shillings to 500 shillings per term under the Kiharu Masomo Bora 2026 initiative. The new policy is expected to benefit over 12,000 students across 65 day secondary schools in their constituency, easing the financial burden on families and improving access to education. The revised fee will structure and will take effect from the first term of 2026, and it will apply to all students from Form 1 to Form 4 in public day secondary schools in Kiharu.
Grade 10, Form 3 and 4 in all the day secondary schools in Kiharu, which are around 65, covering 12,000 learners. That the school fees in Kiharu is only 500 shillings per term. And the learners will take school from Monday to Saturday. Na sio githeri kila siku. Tuna mix kamchele na kagitheri kidogo wasisahau. And the last Friday of the month in Kiharu, wanafunzi wataendelea kukula chapati, tunyorokia maneno vile inafaa.
All right, allow us to take a quick break at that particular point. When we come back, we'll be getting into the newspapers. You've listened into the lawyers who are protesting that judiciary move to ban state agencies from hiring private lawyers or lawyers who are in private practice. So that is a story on the Daily Nation. I'll be giving you the numbers because they are huge, as well as the standard on the 2027 plans and the year ahead, even as Ruto solidifies his support on local bases. So don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is Morning Live. We want to get into the newspaper review to look at some of the top stories on the pages this morning across the country, and what that means as well, why it is critical that you understand about it. So I'll begin with the Daily Nation. States 39 billion shillings legal fees scam. States 39 billion shillings legal fees scam. Now, essentially, a court order has barred public agencies from hiring private law firms that has revived the debate on huge legal fees the government incurs despite employing state lawyers. Now, in other words, the government owes private lawyers over 39 billion shillings as legal fees. Now, for example, there are a number of counties that have been that have been published on the pages this morning, and just what the counties owe law firms. For instance, in Nairobi, the county government of Nairobi owes private lawyers 21.3 billion shillings. Machakos County owes lawyers 1.5 billion shillings, and I'm speaking about private lawyers for that matter. Kisumu, 970 million shillings. So Nairobi County is the highest. The big question is why? 21.3 billion shillings. This means a lot of cases have been filed in court. There are a lot of challenges concerning either policies or directives that have been issued by the county government of Nairobi. Now, on the national government expenditure, the Independent Election and Boundaries Commission has spent 4.9 billion shillings on lawyers. Kenya Airports Authority has spent 243 million shillings, while the Health Ministry spent 142 million shillings to defend SHA cases. In other words, lawyers are rating good, right? They're rating good. But the big problem is that when you have a county government, there is a county government lawyer. Every state department has got a lawyer, and as well as the Attorney General, we've got an office of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is the legal representative of government, and so they're allowed to, stand in for government, defend if and when cases are filed against the government, could be in whatever ministry there is. And the government employs its own lawyers as well. So the biggest argument that has been taken to court by those that filed the case, including Senator Okia Omtata, is that let government use their own lawyers, or county governments use their own lawyers. Do not use lawyers from private practice, because it accumulates into billions of shillings. And perhaps even could talk about double roles. Why have a county government lawyer, then try to hire a different lawyer as well of who's within private practice? The big question may also be how many lawyers are actually hired by government, and are they enough? Do they have enough manpower? And like how perhaps a private practice may have invested into physical infrastructure as well as human infrastructure. And so that is a story that is on page 4 and 5, and that is why earlier on we listened into the Law Society of Kenya, who voiced their concerns concerning that. So in the 2023-2024 financial year, a report showed that legal fees hit 39 billion shillings. 39 billion shillings is a huge amount of money if you're really to put it into perspective. Now, in a statement, LSK President described the case that has been filed as a culmination of a protracted and cyclical effort to exclude private legal practitioners from the public sector's economic ecosystem. And so essentially she's telling the courts, we can't just practice privately. You're giving us an opportunity as well to practice with public entities or with public firms who may need our services. After all, lawyers go to the same school, right? They go through sort of the same curriculum. And then at the end of the day, it's a decision on do they go private practice, do they go and serve for the government. So this is one of the biggest concerns that has been raised as lawyers fight the order threatening 39 billion shillings. Now, the directive that has been put in place has ordered that as of now, all government agencies will cease from getting services from private lawyers, and they have threatened to challenge that in court as well, the LSK. Isn't it interesting that how the judiciary system works? The judiciary has put out an order against the lawyers, and now the lawyers have to go back to the same judiciary, to a different court, to sort of as well seek orders barring from that order taking effect. So interesting about how the judiciary system works in Kenya. So the petition filed in Nakuru states that Kenya Airports Authority paid a law firm to represent it in the Adani case, which the government paid a total of 142 million to several law firms to defend it in the Social Health Authority cases. Odhiambo said all law firms that represent and act on behalf of public entities are required to demonstrate a set of standard competency, capacity, and experience. She said these qualities speak to the necessity and reasonableness of engagement of private practitioners to handle matters on behalf of government. For example, how many times have you, seen there's this famous senior counsel, Elisha Ongoya, right, representing county governors as they are facing impeachment. I mean, he is in private practice, and so these are some of the cases that you may have seen where private lawyers are actually defending, perhaps could be the government or senior public officials when it comes to various cases. So the LSK president explained that the engagement of external counsel fills huge gaps in public entities. She said private practitioners handle matters from which conflicts of interest may arise on the part of government-employed advocates. So that is the top of the page story on the Daily Nation. States 39 billion shillings legal fees scam. At the same time, HELB funding strain as more learners qualify for university. There was an increase of learners who scored grade C+ and above, which is, which guarantees direct entry to university. And as we speak, over 270,715 learners scored that grade, up from 246,000 who qualified in 2024. So there's an addition of about 24,000, if my math is right, 24,000 learners who got that particular score. So the Higher Education Loan Board, that is HELB, estimates about 90% of these students will apply for loans, putting more pressure on a tight budget, even as the agency targets to recover 16 billion shillings this year. Now, the biggest concern could be in the education sector is the fact that at a point in time in 2024, HELB had said that, due to loan defaults, they were actually not able to support an aggressive number of learners who were looking to have been funded for the educations. Now, the reason HELB was put in place was that it allows learners take loans from HELB, pay for studies, or perhaps buy themselves a laptop or just to support their studies. But at the end, when they get employed, then they'll be refunding money to HELB. But the pressure now is getting a little bit aggressive, with more learners now being churned out to head to universities, and they will be applying for this particular loan. So is the money there? Now, the Kenya's university funding system is facing unprecedented strain following a record surge in students qualifying for higher education. As I've said, 270,000 candidates scored grade C+ and above, making them eligible for university admissions. The growing number of eligible students comes as public universities grapple with limited funding, raising concerns about whether the government and higher education funding agencies can accommodate the increasing demand. I'll also tell you why this is an increasing demand. We've got a new funding model in place, a new university funding model. And so you're likely to see that the school fees is going to be different from the older model. Initially, the government would have paid a certain percentage for your learner, but now they have been, clustered into bands. So you've got a band 1, band 2, depending on your family. Are they vulnerable, a family that is not able to provide for themselves? And so this has put more strain, because you're looking at courses where parents are paying to the tunes of 100,000 shillings in a year, in an academic year, in public schools. Initially, you'd pay about 30,000 shillings, for a whole academic year, or even 24,000 shillings. And so the higher demand from the university funding model has also led to a higher demand from students to be able to access HELB to just, sort that funding out. So funding crisis looms as learners qualify for, and for the class of 2025, they will actually be joining sometime later this year, perhaps in September. As well as Ruto's plan to regain support in Mount Kenya. I'll be speaking about that on the Standard newspaper, and whether or not ground imemkubali. As well as 204 billion shillings from sale of Safaricom shares to fund capital projects. So that is the headline on the Daily Nation this morning. Now let's cross over to the Standard newspaper that speaks of Ruto reality check. Ruto reality check. Shifting loyalty, is it on the ground as President William Ruto's hold on Mount Kenya is weakening? His climb up from the mountain is getting slippery, and his latest tour, where only 2 governors out of 11 from Mount Kenya joined him, has raised more questions with regards to that. Now, many local leaders fear backlash over unpopular policies and his fallout with former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Analysts warn, with 2027 approaching, Mount Kenya politicians are recalculating support, leaving Ruto's once solid base increasingly fragile. Now, over the years, we've had conversations about Mount Kenya, and what is so special, I'd say, about Mount Kenya. Number one, it's about the voting bloc and how they move as one. If you look at the trends and the patterns in 2022 and 2017, once they choose a candidate, they largely vote for that candidate. It's not a sort of divided region. They speak in one voice if they support a particular candidate. This is a region that may bring over 3 million votes for a candidate, and this is likely to go higher depending on how many registered voters we look at by 2027. So that figure is likely to go from between perhaps 3 million to 5 million new voters. And so this is a huge chunk of a voting bloc, and it's quite attractive for any leader that wants to be president in Kenya. Now, if you look at 2022, the Mount Kenya region didn't have a presidential candidate. They had a running mate, right? The former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was the appoint man within that top seat. With what happened after the impeachment, Ruto remained as president, but had to go for a Mount Kenya running mate to perhaps just appease leaders from Mount Kenya or residents from Mount Kenya. He had an option of going for any other leader that may not necessarily be from Mount Kenya, but he opted for Mount Kenya, perhaps to just ensure if he can get something out of it, the better. But now, following his rally in Mount Kenya region, perhaps a new reality check is in place, and the fact that he may not as well get that particular solid support he got in 2022. The big question would be, where is he going to get it from elsewhere? He may count on the Rift Valley, which may back one of their own. He may count on Luo Nyanza region, which is yet to be tested on which way it's going to go post Raila Odinga's death. And Raila Odinga was their kingpin, arguably. And, if he says go left, they would have gone left and they would vote for him because he was also on the ballot. But now with his absence, they have not really been tested in terms of who they are going to vote for as president. Now, 2027 will be their first test. Would he be banking on that support? Perhaps not in entirety. If you look at Western Kenya region, this is also a region that has got a huge voting bloc as well. Now, the biggest challenge with Western region is that they do not necessarily speak in one voice. In 2022, there was a huge split. For example, in Vihiga, in Busia County, and in Kakamega County, they all voted for Raila Odinga's presidency. Bungoma County surprised many, and many analysts have talked about how that is what won Ruto the presidency, because in 2017, Bungoma, or larger the Western region, went Raila Odinga's way, but in 2022, well, that was split right down the middle, literally. And so can he bank on Western Kenya, putting in mind that there's emergence of the likes of George Natembeya, who's seeking to unseat the Luya kingpinship. You've got the likes of Edwin Sifuna, who've also got a say in the region. And so there may be various issues that may arise from Western Kenya. Now, these are the key, I'd say, voting blocks. Before we can now talk about Eastern, which is likely to still support Kalonzo Musyoka. The coastal region, will they back President William Ruto? Will they go for somebody that is different? So that's now how perhaps the game of numbers is going to stick on Mount Kenya. Now, this time 4 years ago, Ruto was a darling of the region. He never needed to mobilize to get an audience, but how things have changed. His allies in Mount Kenya region are now forced to mobilize and ferry supporters so that whenever he visits, he gets the crowds needed to create a perception that he's still in charge. Now, all elected leaders, including those at grassroots, accompanied him to the meetings he convened. He was a frequent visitor, especially to churches on Sunday and other social functions. And now there's a new change, or things seem to have fallen apart, as he has only a few remaining loyalists who do not always join him on his now rare visits to the region. Nairobi's Democracy for Citizens Party, Irungu Nyakera, says failing to read the times has put leaders in an awkward position. Now, yesterday, Ruto was in Laikipia to open a modern market at Rumuruti, where only his allies from the county, led by area Governor Joshua Irungu, joined him. Others present included Mwangi Kiunjuri, Wachira Karani, Sarah Korere, as well as Women Representative Jane Kagiri. The only other notable political figure outside Laikipia was Samburu Governor Jonathan Lelelit, who had earlier hosted the president in his county as he launched the Nyota program. And so there's now a reduction of leaders, and perhaps, you know, it's a big question on does the region go for DCP, does the region go for UDA? If you look at the recent Mbeere North by-elections that were held, there may be diverging views on what exactly that meant. Yes, UDA won Mbeere North, but if you look at the difference in terms of votes, it was very little. It was mere hundreds. And so that as well may be a huge factor that, you know, you've got a new baby in town, that is DCP party, and gives you that kind of challenge, a new party that pushes you to mobilize resources to actually have leaders camp in the region. Kithure Kindiki camped in Mbeere North for days in the run-up to the elections. And so that may have been an indicator that despite the fact that DCP did not win the Mbeere North seats, they may still command a huge chunk of voters within Mbeere North, and not just Mbeere North, perhaps even the larger, Mount Kenya region. And so the president's reality check in Mount Kenya that he may not be as popular as he hoped following the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. At the same time, he has crafted new campaign squad to break regional kingpins' power. He now has got point men in various regions. For example, in Western Kenya, he's got a group that is solely in charge of coordinating his re-election. For example, in Bungoma County, Western Kenya, Bungoma Governor Kenneth Lusaka has been appointed as President William Ruto's Western Region Campaign Coordinator, and he is deputized by Ayub Savula. Now, this is interesting because largely Western Kenya has always been, I'd say, redirected, or, you know, has had leaders like Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula almost speaking on behalf of the Western Kenya people. The big question is, why didn't he task either Wetangula or Musalia Mudavadi to be the region's Western campaign kingpins or coordinators? But now he's got Bungoma Governor Kenneth Lusaka, who is now serving his final term as governor, and Ayub Savula. Some have said, you know, perhaps this is a strategy following the huge loss that Wetangula was given in his home county, not just home county, but home ward, after the Chwele, Kabuchai by-elections for the ward representative, where his party lost to an independent candidate who was being backed by George Natembeya. So that perhaps has changed the twist. He may as well have put various kingpins, that is the president, in other regions as well to coordinate for his re-election. So this is a new move as he seeks to retain power come 2027. So Ruto reality check, that is the headline on the Standard newspaper. At the same time, Uganda shuts down internet ahead of polls. They head to the polls tomorrow, 15th of January, 5 years after the previous elections, which were quite bloody in 2021. But at the moment, Ugandans are not online, literally. This is after the Ugandan Communications Commission directed the management of mobile network operators and internet service providers to shut down internet starting 6 p.m. Tuesday. Now, according to the communique, sale and registration of new SIM cards, provision of outbound data roaming services to one network area countries will all non-essential public internet traffic will remain blocked until after elections. If you are in Tanzania right now, pardon me, if you're in Uganda and you're a Kenyan, that is, you may use roaming services if you're not there permanently. And so that means you as well have been affected. You will not be able to use those roaming services. So they say this measure is necessary to mitigate the rapid spread of online misinformation, disinformation, electoral fraud and related risks, as well as preventing of incitement of violence that could affect public confidence in national security during the period. Now, about a week ago, they had denied the claims that they will shut down internet. So the big question is, what's changed really? And so Ugandans will be in darkness until tomorrow after the polls, even as Yoweri Museveni battles it out with Robert Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobi Wine, for the presidency. Museveni is currently 81 years of age. So if you add 5 years to that, he'll be 86 when he will be finishing this, or if he'll be finishing this second time if he gets elected. So those are some of the headlines on the Standard newspaper. ODM waning power jolts Odinga family. For more than 2 decades, ODM has been the vehicle of the Odinga family, and this is a vehicle they rode on to project political power. The family has been mobilizing voters, elbowing opponents, and shaping national conversations. According to a political analyst, Gitile Naituli, the decline of ODM reduces the family's bargaining power, hence call for political reinvention. Now, for years, Odinga family's political dominance ensured that relatives and allies seeking elective offices were almost assured of a party ticket, while others smoothly landed influential government positions, but that is likely to change. So those are some of the headlines on top of on the Standard newspaper on this Wednesday morning. So allow me to wrap it up at that point on the newspaper review. I hope you're up to date with what is making headlines countrywide. Thank you for watching. See you at 1 p.m. for the news bulletin. Stay tuned to EBN TV. Have a good morning.